So I said in the last part that I missed a special stage in the zone. But again, I found it in like 23 seconds when I replayed the level, which is really convenient. And again, I've said practically everything I can about these special stages. They're a great idea in that you don't have to deal with controls that are either slippery or stiff because you can control Sonic exactly where you want him to go with the stylus. But unfortunately, the later special stages don't really have the right design for a special stage like this. Why are these enemies even here in the first place? Like, seriously, the only way that you can get into the special stages in this game is to get enough boost energy, which only Sonic and Blaze have, and boost inside of the special stage swings. So how did the enemies get here? Did they boost in the special stage swings too? It makes about as much sense as Eggman stealing the emerald from you in Sonic Blast. Easily the worst part of the whole swiping the stylus to get rings part in the special stage. It's so exact and precise. But anyways, this game is the first 2D Sonic game to introduce a letter-based ranking system. And I think it was the first one to have the S rank in it. Because Shadow the Hedgehog, which was released at the same time, it had an A rank, and that was the highest rank it had. So, well, the problem with the ranking system is that it's entirely based on, well, it's also based on how quickly you beat the level, but a major part of its ranking is how many tricks you've done. Because you earn points by doing a whole bunch of tricks and getting a high combo. So, I don't really feel like it accurately represents your skill when you beat the level. Like, there's so many times when I first played the game where I got unusually high ranks. And, like, for example, when I first played Leaf Storm, I had no idea how exactly I was supposed to do tricks. I beat the level having no idea how to play the core gameplay, only using the upward trick and nothing else, and I still got a B rank. Like, you should get like a D at most for that. Like, I don't really feel like the ranking system accurately represents your skill. Like, I've never gotten an E rank, even though you might think I had a miserable first experience because I sucked at the game. I didn't. It's just the game being difficult. But anyways, this is Deadline, and this is easily one of the worst levels in the game because of one gimmick that it introduces. A gimmick that honestly isn't really a very good thing to play. The rocket boosters in Altitude Limits I despise, but this one is actually a lot worse, because even when you know what to do, it's still hard to control. Not pressing anything on the control pad at all while you're hanging on them will cause them to go straight. And this isn't very intuitive because you've been trained to realize for the entire game that you need to hold right to go right and hold left to go left. So naturally it isn't very intuitive that suddenly the rockets have momentum. A lot of times I'll have a problem in this game where I won't realize when springs are going to send me up into loops, and so I'll do an upward air trick from them, and then I'll immediately fall down to the loop. But with this level in particular, it's weird, like I always know intuitively what springs are going to send me into loops. I guess this is a level that doesn't have the whole background reflection thing. Like, you can always tell what's the foreground and what's the background. Like, that's kind of a problem I had with Water Palace. Was sometimes you couldn't tell what was a wall that you could go through and what was a wall that you couldn't. So, like, you would soar over a loop and then try to go to the right, and then you'd realize, oh, the game isn't actually rewarding me for the fact that I soared over it. Never mind. But yeah, I think you control the rockets by, like, if you're facing left and you grab onto it, then holding left will cause it to turn around to the right. Like, it'll turn around up. God, I have such a hard time describing it. That really speaks volumes about how bad it is. Like, you gotta constantly turn. You gotta constantly press left and right on the control pad in order to try to keep it going straight. And if you do that, if you're constantly pressing left and right while holding onto the rockets, they're not gonna go straight, they're gonna go constantly diagonally. Like, they'll be going up and down instead of just going left and right in a straight line. This is easily the worst special stage in the game because it's so precise. Like, you can't really afford to miss many rings, and the spike balls are put in such obnoxious places. It really feels like they just randomly put rings wherever at a certain point. Although, it looks like the second phase of it isn't really that bad. It's really the first phase that is really terrible. Because it constantly has sections like this where it just feels like they just scattered rings everywhere and just scattered mines everywhere. It's not a fair challenge considering that you can't jump at all. And again, it's so precise. And you go so far when, like, I don't know. It's not very good, I think. But anyways, this level constantly has you use rockets in order to get across bottomless pits. Or it'll have rockets that send you into spikes, and there's a massive, gigantic horizontal row of the spikes. So, if you land in them, there's a chance you might not be able to get out of that spike pit and survive. So, what you've got to do is, like, let's see if I can remember this right. If you're facing right when you grab onto a rocket, and you hold right, then it's going to start going down. And eventually it's going to turn around, and it's going to start going left, which you really don't want. So, what you usually want to do is you want to hold backwards on the control pad when you grab onto a rocket. Because that way, it'll start turning so that it moves up. But you don't want it to go completely up. Especially because another thing that this level introduces is, well, aside from these gimmicks, which you just hold right on, it's not really that big of a deal. You gotta stop on these fans or you'll fall down past them. I don't know why you have to stop for them to hold you. Like, normally a fan catches you no matter how far you're moving. And of course you can soar right past that spring. Even though, that's right, you get sent all the way back to the start of the level until you finally reach that first checkpoint, which is over 2 minutes in, by the way. And when I first played this game, when I first played this level, I didn't find this checkpoint right here. So I went over 3 minutes without finding a checkpoint because they don't put a checkpoint on every single route. Why not? That's such terrible design. You should never play a level for over 3 minutes and still not get a checkpoint. You shouldn't have to take specific routes through a level in order to get a checkpoint. Like, I was actually enjoying this level when I first played it, until I died. Because when I died, I was over 2 minutes in, and I was sent all the way back to the start of the level. And I was thinking it was a pretty decent level, so I didn't mind replaying it from the start over and over again, but still, it was draining. This level also has a lot of anti-gravity gimmicks. And it's kind of confusing because there's a lot of parts of the level design in Rush in general where you're upside down in that you're running along a floor. But you have to keep on holding a certain direction in order to stay on that ceiling. Otherwise you'll fall. But there's also sections in this level where it's normal for you to be upside down, and stopping won't send you to your death. So it's very easy to forget which is which, and end up falling into a bottomless pit. And this level makes it pretty obvious as well, that sometimes when a spring sends you downwards, like when a spring sends you back, you can actually, like sometimes when a spring sends you back and you're not holding forwards anymore, because naturally the spring sent you back. Did I just fall up into my death? You don't do that! This is not something that a platformer should do. A platformer should not kill you by sending you upwards. Not unless there's an insta-kill laser or spikes or something. Just having you fall up into your doom doesn't really make any sense. You've also got these seesaws, and thankfully you don't have to boost into them, so you don't get stuck if you don't have boost. Basically, you run into them, and a controls prompt shows up telling you to hold back on the control pad, and so it just sends you up into a wall and you start running along the wall. This is actually the first 2D Sonic game to have you go into a goal ring upside down. Which I think is good, like I mean it is an anti-gravity level after all. I love how they actually have groups of rings here. It's if they actually expect you to be able to control the rockets so well that you'll actually collect all of them. Like, I don't know why they think that you're gonna actually collect all of them. It doesn't really sound like they're very self-aware of how the level is gonna be played and how people are gonna experience it. And isn't that a remarkable change? Like, we go from checkpoint starvation for Act 1 to a checkpoint 10 seconds in. But don't let that fool you. Because on your first playthrough, Act 2 is going to be terrible compared to Act 1. And one of the reasons is these enemy rooms. Well, sort of. Like, the enemy rooms aren't really that bad, it's like, this is the third level where you have enemy rooms, and I don't really understand why they thought that was a good idea. This is the first level in the game, and the only level, by the way, where you are completely required to use the forwards air trick to progress, because you need to do that in order to break through walls. I wish they just didn't have the forward air trick at all, because a lot of the times, the forward air trick is just something that I do by accident when I'm trying to do the upwards air trick. So it really would have been better if they just didn't have it at all, instead of just putting something in the game that doesn't really need to be there, and then awkwardly trying to justify its inclusion with like one level. And this is a really unintuitive section. Like, you gotta go down with these cannons to progress, which is completely against your platforming instincts, because in a platformer, you really don't want to go down because you assume that you're gonna die. Like, you assume that you're going to be sent into a bottomless pit if you do that. And another weird thing about those walls that you break through is that they'll respawn if you fall past them without breaking them. Like, you can break them, but then they'll respawn as if they need to be on the screen broken in order to stay broken. Except there's 2 screens. So shouldn't that have fixed the problem? But they despawn anyway. And I'm gonna show that off later with Blaze. But yeah, this level has a lot of problems to it. Like, Act 1 is pretty decent even on your first playthrough. But Act 2, it can be pretty frustrating. And part of the reason is because of rockets like this. There's a bottomless pit to the left of you, so there's yet another opportunity for you to fall up into your doom. And that section where you have to go down with the cannons, that had a bottomless pit that sent you upwards too. And of course you've got the enemies that shoot projectiles directly below them. You got them back too. Although again, the enemies aren't really that much of a problem in this level, unless you intentionally try to kill them in order to get more boost. But still, I feel like this level is yet another level that goes on far too long. Especially when you first play the game, where it can take like over a half an hour. Because you're constantly dying over and over again. And see? The wall respawned. I clearly broke it, but it respawned even though there's 2 screens, and so you'd think that would prevent it from respawning. And now you got yet another one of these. And you gotta make sure that you go up enough with it, but not too up, or else you'll get sent into the ceiling, you'll fall to your death. I remember when I first played this level, I died so many times here, And that was right before the goal ring. Like, that's pretty insulting. And I don't like how the end victory screen doesn't actually tell you what time you beat the level at. It just gives you a time bonus with meaningless numbers that don't really tell you anything. Like, I'd be more motivated to replay levels to get a better rank if I knew this isn't actually the music that plays in the game, and that's a damn shame, because her theme from when she appeared in Black Knight is as awesome as this line right here. Well, aside from the fact that it gets repetitive, because it's only like 30 seconds. I really hate Sonic here. Seriously, why is he insulting her for getting all worked up over trying to save the world? And Eggman Nega is confusing there because at first he acts like he's going to destroy the world, but then all of a sudden he's like, I think I'm gonna like it here. There's a lot of things that annoy me about this boss, but it is one of the easiest bosses in the game. It is one of the easiest bosses in the game because you can just jump into her. But there's a really small window of opportunity for when you can jump into her. So you gotta be really quick about it. Like, it always struck me as annoying that you can't damage her when you jump into her head just because she has fire underneath her feet. For Sonic, it makes sense because he's in a spin dash, and so he's constantly spinning around with his spiky hair and stuff. So naturally you get damage from jumping into it. Except you don't, you just bounce off it harmlessly as Blaze. But yeah, it took like 37 seconds for me to get to the final hit. Why can't every boss in the game be like this? She's also got a homing attack, which she doesn't actually have when you actually play as her. That's exactly what you do! That is exactly what Sonic does. Sonic carries the weight of the world on his shoulders. And now you've got a button mashing section. And this is the most infamous one in the game. Although, to be honest, I didn't think it was that bad, even when I first played it. You just, I mean, if it expected you to mash A and Y, that would be terrible. But A and B are so close together. Like, your thumb can naturally land on both. Like, even when I played it on a 3DS, which was what I did the first time I played it, it wasn't really that bad. Maybe I'm just good at button mashing, I don't know. How is she overzealous, and how does she have a rough past? And he says be yourself, even though he spent the entire game insulting her for being herself. She's a loner. She's not naturally a social person. It just feels like he's just being overly saccharine, giving her a whole bunch of cheesy advice. Even advice that directly contradicts everything he's told her. And it's like he was acting like she had a rough past, but she's actually the princess of her dimension. She's a very respected person in Soul Dimension. So, how is it that she has a rough past? Like, a lot of people think that she was bullied for her fire powers. But why would she be bullied when she's the respected princess of the Soul Dimension? And later on, she says that because of her powers, she's always been alone. But in Rush Adventure, she's revealed to be the princess of the Soul Dimension, and she has royal guards tending to her and everything. How is it that she's always been alone? Blaze really doesn't have a backstory, because a backstory is supposed to explain what she was like before she had her role that she has now. Her backstory is completely non-existent, just like Knuckles was. Really all we know is her role. And it doesn't really, it kind of contradicts, I don't know.